Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Enneagram in a Movie podcast. And guys, I am very, very excited about the movie we're going to talk about today. I had forgotten, and this happens every time I watch this movie, I forget what an incredible movie it is and how much I just enjoy every scene of it. I mean, there's just every moment of this is a thrill for me. So we're going to talk about The Transmitting One. And TJ Ingrassia, since this was your pick, we went back and forth on what movie to use, but you suggested this one at the last moment. So tell us what movie it is and why you suggested it.
TJ Dawe suggested.
Here we go. Yeah, see,
there we go.
See, here we go again. So, we've gotten the recommendation, listener, that I come up with a nickname of one of the for one of the TJs. We're playing with Skippy for TJ Ingrassia, but honestly, I just don't think that's going to stick. So, we're going to have to keep bumbling through which TJ for a while. Okay, so TJ Dawe, why did you pick this movie?
So one of the things
the movie?
The movie is the 2010 remake of True Grit by the Coen brothers. Yeah. And one of the things that I bring to the table in this project and practically every project I work on is I have a good memory for random shit. So even though this is not a movie I've seen recently, I saw this shortly after it came out and haven't seen it since, haven't thought about it much since, loved it then, kind of forgot about it. You, Mario, brought this up in conversation a year or two or three ago. And that just stayed in some portion of my brain. And we had cycled through a bunch of other movies to do, like what is the good definitive transmitting one we can look at. We'd watched some other movies, we'd considered other movies. And then this came up as a suggestion on an Instagram account that I follow because the algorithm has figured that I like movies, so here's movie stuff. And it was listing great movies from different years. And in 2010, that was one of them. And I was like, aha! Those synapses connected. I reached out to you and said, hey, why don't we jump ship for the movie we were going to do and do this one instead? And here we are.
Yeah. And it was a great choice. And so, TJ, we always ask you to do, TJ Dawe, always ask you to do the synopsis. But before we do that, so TJ Ingrassia is our resident transmitting one. And so we're finally getting to talk about his subtype in this. So TJ Dawe, I'm going to ask you just kind of a quick TJ Ingrassia, I'm going to ask you for a quick reaction to the movie. You said it's been a while since you've seen it. What was your reaction upon rewatching it?
Similar to what you said, just loved it. Loved every scene of it. It's so well written, so well shot. It's sort of in this, and actually I had even forgotten that it was directed by the Coen brothers. And it's very much more in line with their No Country for Old Men style versus like Raising Arizona style, right. Even though it continues this theme of what you might call flowery dialogue coming out of the mouths of uneducated morons, which they do so well. Great depiction, great characters, beautiful cinematography by Roger Deakins. Just 5 stars all the way through.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, just, we'll get into all the delights of this movie. But I'll tell you what, for those of you who have not seen it, and I do encourage you, if you have not seen it, to go and watch it and then come back. I think I saw it on, was it Paramount Plus maybe, that it's streaming on? But it's a wonderful movie. TJ Dawe, give us a synopsis of True Grit, please.
You bet. So this is a remake of a movie that originally came out in 1969 starring John Wayne, which he got the Oscar for, and it's based on a novel. So it takes place in the Old West.
No, I don't think did he get the Oscar for this?
He did, yeah.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
and, it was, I think, widely considered more of a career Oscar rather than a specific, like his performance was so amazing that we need to honor that. It's more like he was such an amazing star. But anyway, that's not the version of this movie we're here to talk about. So this takes place in 1878. It is the Old West. We are in Arkansas, and 14-year-old Matty Ross, played by Hailee Steinfeld, travels to see that Tom Chaney, the bandit who murdered Marshal and bounty hunter Reuben, also known as Rooster Cogburn, played in this version by Jeff Bridges, wearing an eye patch, to bring Chaney back and insists on accompanying him even though he tries to ditch her. There's also a Texas Ranger, Mr. LaBeef, played by Matt Damon, who's hunting for Chaney for other crimes. And they form an alliance, which later falls apart, but then he comes back again after that. Anyway, Ross and Cogburn track and then catch up with Chaney, who's played by Josh Brolin, who has joined a band of outlaws. And in the final melee, Cogburn shoots the bandits, LaBeef shoots the bandit leader, Matty Ross shoots Chaney in self-defense, and in doing so gets knocked backwards, falls into a cave where she's bitten by a snake. Cogburn rides all night to get her help. And then we fast forward 25 years. She's an adult. She lost an arm, had to have it amputated because of that snake bite. She hadn't seen Cogburn since, and she goes to meet up with him. He's now in a Wild West show, and by the time she catches up with the show, he's been dead for 3 days. And she has his body moved to her family's cemetery, and the credits roll.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy. So we were talking, and the original version, which was kind of I saw many times as a child back in the 70s, maybe early 80s. I used to play all the time. Was I remember it being a great movie and something that I really liked. I tried to watch it more recently, and it didn't quite hold up so much, But do you remember who played the LaBeef character in the original version?
No.
Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell played the Matt Damon role, and Kim Darby played Maddie. More of a little bit of a six-ish character than I think this one is. But anyway, so TJ Ingrassia, who are we going to be talking about as the transmitting one in this movie?
Well, that'd be Maddie.
Uh-huh.
And she is a force to be reckoned with. You don't want to negotiate for horses with her. You don't want to ditch her when you cross the river. You pretty much don't want to do anything that she doesn't want you to do.
Yes.
And I love the before the film even starts, it opens with this Bible verse. I think it was from Proverbs: "The wicked flee when none pursueth." And if that's not a one verse right there, then I don't know what would be.
Yeah. So, with this one, I remember seeing this in the theater way back, and just thinking, wow, what a great transmitting one character. And what I like about this character in particular is that it shows the difference between transmitting and either one-to-one or sexual, right? There's something, transmitting is more than that. Now, we are talking about a 14-year-old girl, so, hopefully there's not going to be a rationale for why you would refer to it as a sexual subtype. But I'm curious, guys, what you saw. Let me say this. How did the character reflect transmitting from the awareness to action perspective rather than one-to-one or transmitting? Who wants to take a stab at that?
Yeah, and this slightly reorders the way we usually discuss this.
It does. And and I think what I want to do here is, rather than talking about what about this character was transmitting, how would we define transmitting based on this movie compared to what, others might think of that? Does that make sense?
The big thing I've got in my notes I've got it into the column of transmitting one, because I was having a hard time parsing what's transmitting and what's one, because the two in this character are symbiotic, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Powerful self-assertion. Mm-hmm. I've got this sense of how things need to be, and I'm not going to let anyone or anything get in my way. Yeah. So I think that's universal among transmitters, and it's going to be filtered through whatever somebody's type is. So for a transmitting 4, my powerful sense of how I need to be has a lot to do with my uniqueness and my creative expression. For a transmitting 8, it's going to be different. For a transmitting 2, it's going to be different. For a transmitting 1, it's very much this powerful self-assertion of what is right. So Maddie is absolutely motivated by the burning need to see justice done to the murder of her father, and she will not be stopped, even though she's 14, even though she's a girl in the Old West by herself among men. No supervision, no resources really, other than her own unquenchable thirst for justice and her will that just won't be broken.
Yeah, and I think that justice is a reflection of this incredible need that the transmitting one has to shape the world into the way it should be. Okay? And it's, and a lot of Enneagram teachers, I think, would look at this character and characterize it as a social one, because it's somebody who's trying to, change society or something like that. And the way I think about these things is the preserving one is trying to perfect the way they interact with kind of their material world, right? Their physical world. The navigating one is trying to perfect the way they interact with the social world. Okay? They're not trying to conform the social world to them. They are trying to figure out what the rules and mores are so that I can live up to them. The transmitting one is saying, this is the way the world should be. This is the way you should be, trash. And I'm going to let you know, right? I mean, and so she is constantly, even when her life is in danger, she's constantly criticizing people and correcting them, and just like, and people are just marveling at the moxie on this kid, to, wait, I'm pointing a gun at you and you're going to, correct my grammar or something, kind of thing, right? So I think for me, one of the things I like about this movie, it really captures what's at the heart of the transmitting one. It's not about being in a one-to-one relationship. It's about, no, you need to be different than you are. And I need to be a model of what you should be aspiring to from an ethical or moral or behavioral perspective. Okay. So with that, what's one-ish about Matty?
Well, also transmitting one. Do you relate to any of that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. There we go. Yeah. So go ahead, TJ.
I have
disagree.
No notes. No disagreements. Nothing to perfect in what you guys have said. I co-sign.
Yeah. And I got to say, and look, so I don't know. We've known each other a few years now, and I don't find TJ Ingrassia to be quite as intense as, say, Matty Ross is, but one of the things that really caught my attention about TJ were some videos that you did, and I forget what you called them, but kind of,
I think it was my object lessons.
Yeah, and it kind of, and it was. And
even the name, I never really thought about it until now. I will teach you people lessons that you need to learn.
And these are objective lessons.
Yes.
This doesn't come from me. And I think that's worth mentioning with the transmitting one. It's with the transmitting 8, I think it's going to be more likely of, this is what I want.
Yes.
My vision is the one.
Yes.
Whereas with a 1, it's more like, this is objectively right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with what I want. I might be the holy angel assigned to assert it, but this is an objectively true, correct principle.
Now in reality, it's just as subjective, as much as I hate to admit that. But
Yes.
there is, I can only speak from the feeling of the one perspective on that. But there is this feeling that it's not subjective. The truth. The objectivity that floats around in the universe has beamed the truth into my brain, and I will communicate it to the unwashed masses.
Yes.
And Mario, something you've likened a transmitting one to many times in the past is an Old Testament prophet.
Yes.
So there's very much that sense of like, this is the divine will that
Yes.
I'm enacting. And a character that really seems a comparable to Matty, to me, is Joan of Arc.
Oh, yeah, good. Mm-hmm.
Young female in a time that is not inclined to listen to young women.
Right.
Just saying, I have a divine purpose. I must follow this. I must devote my life. I don't care if it puts me in danger. I don't care if it takes my life.
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an important point here, and you've already said this, but the core quality of point one that we talk about is objectivity. Okay. And what happens in each of us is that we start to have this kind of fear that we don't know what the objective truth is, right? Because we bring our prejudices and preconceptions. And so the one is trying to recapture that in some way, but it's a manufactured objectivity, right? So it's really kind of a set of rules that are determined by the one, but then, as you guys have said, feel objective. Okay. Now, when a one is healthy and pretty mature, they're pretty good at coming up with an objective perspective. Okay, so being able to step back and also bringing that passion to be able to call out to the rest of us, hey, you should be aspiring to this too. And that is the beauty of the transmitting one when they're healthy. And again, that's what, when I saw TJ's videos, he was objectively right because I agreed with him in what he was saying, and I just thought, yeah, I like the way this guy's putting this out there. So anyway, all right. So what is one-ish? And then let me go back here. I mean, so to your point, TJ Dawe, can we really separate what's one-ish versus what's transmitting one with this character? I'm not so sure. Thoughts on that?
Well, to a limited extent, like one of the big headings in my notes for just one stuff is righteousness and doing what's right. So for a preserving one, that's going to be on a smaller scale than for a transmitting one. So in the case of Matty, as we've talked about, it's very much in this scenario. We don't know what her life is like outside of this scenario. We get no backstory. But it's very much about bringing this guy to justice. So in the opening voiceover, she says, "No doubt Chaney fancied himself scot-free, but he was wrong. You must pay for everything in this world one way or another. There is nothing free except the grace of God."
Yeah.
She hammers this point again and again. She's all about what is the right way to be. And if somebody's not being right, I have to address it.
Yeah.
So again, preserving one would probably have a much stronger desire to assert that in terms of how are you eating? How are you keeping your living space? What are you doing for a living? What are you doing with your money? What are you doing with your preserving elements? What are you doing with your immediate environment, with your body, with your resources? Where she's very much about the world at large, and the microcosm of that we see is just the characters in this movie.
Mm-hmm. There's a line where she says, I forget who she's talking to, maybe it's Rooster. She says, "Nobody knew my father, and I'm afraid nothing is going to be done about it except I do it." And so it's like there's this injustice, and I have to be the one to go out into the world and fix it, because if I don't do it, no one else will do it. So it's like she has to assert herself into the world to make it right.
Yeah. And this speaks to one of the conflicts, which again shows this subjectivity masking as objectivity. He needs to hang at Fort Smith. He needs to hang for killing my father. I don't care that he shot a senator and his dog. I don't care that he killed these other people or did anything else. He needs to hang for what I want him to hang for. And I don't want anybody to kill him, before that. I want him dragged to justice. Mm-hmm.
And that is a major plot point because LaBeef is a Texas Ranger. And as you said, he wants to get him for crimes in Texas, for killing a Texas state senator. And she can't abide that. And you see both LaBeef and Cogburn argue with her multiple times. Isn't what matters that he hangs, that he's punished. Right. And as you said, she won't have that.
Right.
He's got to be punished in Arkansas for killing my father, period. And it's really interesting to imagine a 14-year-old girl conceivably sabotaging the alliance with the only allies she has over what would seem to the rest of us like, splitting hairs.
Right.
Those hairs matter.
In this case, on a matter such as this.
Yeah, because even when Cogburn tells her, "Look, I'll catch him. We'll drag him along. I'll cut the skin off the bottom of his feet. You can make him eat sand. Do whatever you want." And she says, "No, that's not you're missing the point." She says, "You're missing the point. The point is he has to be hung at Fort Smith." So that's great. All right. Other one-ish stuff.
Well, on the theme of righteousness, just some minor moments late in the movie when she's snake bitten, so the venom is starting to get to her. She doesn't have her full self. Cogburn immediately wants to take her to get help. She refuses to leave LaBeef. He's injured. Mm-hmm. We are not leaving him. Cogburn overrules her as they're riding their horse all night. She insists that the horse be allowed to rest.
Right.
He won't have it. again, she's possibly dying in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually the horse collapses and Cogburn has to shoot him, puts him out of his misery, and she protests. Yeah. So again, there's just this unrelenting drive to see what's right manifest in the world.
Yeah, and there are just constant criticisms flowing from her, right? I mean, it's just this relentless, she wakes up one morning and finds LaBeouf, Matt Damon, staring at her, and he said that, I forget how it came about, but they're into this kind of bickering back and forth, or threatening almost. And she points out his cowlick, and she says, a little bit of spit on your comb could tame that cowlick. And she remembers it 25 years later, thinking, hopefully that cowlick has tamed itself. And it's just on and on. Go ahead, TJ.
And in that scene, LaBeouf says to her, "You give out very little sugar with your pronouncements," because she's basically berating him because, Chaney has eluded LaBeouf, and Matty's like, well, I found him basically to be a half-wit, and this half-wit's outwitting you.
Yeah, you've been eluded by a half-wit, is what she says.
Yeah. And then later, Ned Pepper says almost the same line to her. He says, "You do not varnish your opinions," when she's sitting with him.
That could be on a crest to represent the transmitting one.
Yes. I mean, it's just on and on. Like every time she opens her mouth, I gotta say, for dialogue, the Coen brothers are brilliant at dialogue. I mean, we could go on and on. Miller's Crossing is one of my favorites. Another one where they just create this whole, world of dialogue that's brilliant, and just every line is a gem. When Rooster is in the outhouse, and when she's, and she's standing outside the outhouse while Rooster Cogburn is in there, banging on the door, because she wants to talk to him.
And they haven't met at this point.
They have not met yet. He's this stranger to her. She's a 14-year-old girl banging on this. I need to
behind
talk to
a saloon.
Yeah, behind the saloon. And then when he says, "Oh, women aren't allowed in the saloon," he says, "I'm a 14-year-old girl. Of course, I'm not drinking there." And then there are these times when they suggest, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" And she says, "I'm 14. Of course, I don't want coffee," sort of thing. Because the rules are that a 14-year-old is not supposed to drink coffee or drink whiskey or something. 14-year-olds are supposed to track off across the wilderness and the Indian reservations and hunt the killer of their father, not drink coffee. That's absurd.
But it is an interesting contradiction in that she is both determined to be age appropriate but mature beyond her years.
Yes.
And I think that's a pattern you see a lot with ones, is they have a sense of maturity and responsibility from a young age. It's almost like I didn't get to be the carefree, playful child. There was just a sense I always had that things aren't being done right, including the way I'm being raised, including the way my siblings or my peers are acting, the way my classmates are behaving, and I need to lay down the law. And I didn't necessarily want this. I don't even necessarily like it. But it's just, that's how things are. That's how things have to be, as if it's an objective fact.
Yeah. There are a couple of points where she makes references to her family, and my brother is just a child, and my mother is not very smart. It was basically what it comes down to. And to your point, she has to take this responsibility, whether she really does need to or not. We don't know. But in her mind, my mother's a dummy and my brother's a child, so I need to do these crazy things for a 14-year-old to be doing.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to get to this later or if it's worth talking about now, but so let's talk about the other side, sort of the negative side of all of this drive and sass that she brings. Yeah. So at one point, I forget if it's Rooster or LaBeouf who says to her, basically, you need to learn that you cannot have your way in every little particular. And after they ditch her, they cross the river, she ditches the horse. The ferry crossing guy literally jumps her horse into the river and crosses the river, gets over to the other side. She continues to sass them, so LaBeouf comes over, drags her off her horse, and literally spanks her.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, I can't say I blame him. Like at a certain point, enough is enough, this character, and I can relate, growing up in the evangelical Christian world, there's a lot of focus on the family James Dobson books. Dobson had a book called The Strong-Willed Child. And, that's me, that's Matty. And at a certain point, it's almost like a horse that has to be broken or something. Like, you've got to learn, like, okay, yes, you have this drive. You might be right most of the time, but take it easy, dude, and you need to be brought down a peg or something. So tell me, what did you think about that scene?
TJ Dawe, you want to comment?
Well, it's what you're conjuring to me isn't even from that scene. It's something we've talked about, is how often you see ones as villains in movies, particularly in comedies, where it's probably a transmitting one, not a preserving or navigating one, asserting the way things need to be. So this might be the college dean in Animal House, or the prison warden in Shawshank Redemption, or Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But this person who has never been broken, never come to understand that there is nuance in the world, that there can or should be anything other than my powerful sense of what is right and everybody doing exactly what I say when I say it.
Yeah, there's the thing about that scene that you were talking about, where when she's being spanked, literally. I mean, he spanks her with his hand a few times, and then he grabs a switch. And there was an interesting thing that happened before that, because they're watching her swim her horse across the river, because the ferryman wouldn't take her across at their instruction. So she just says, "I'm not letting that stop me. I'm going to let my horse, swim me across here." And they're watching her with just this fascination, right? I mean, it's like, they don't ride off to try to get away from her. They don't try to help her. They're just like, "Are you seeing this?" Just kind of like marveling at her. And it's at that point that Rooster's attitude toward her changes, right? And you can tell it's like, yeah, this kid's got spunk, I mean, I like this kid. But to your point, TJ, she is just relentlessly annoying, and so, so even the beating doesn't stop her, right? I mean, it's not like it tamed that, rambunctious child. It was like, no, this is the cost that I'm willing to pay. And this kind of shows the connection to point 4 that the one can have, particularly the transmitting 4, is that I'm the only one who gets this, and I will have to suffer and pay this price for being the one who recognizes what is right. And I will endure this, and sometimes I'll feel a bit self-pitying, and other times I'm just going to stand up and go my own way. And she ends up alone, right? I mean, when she goes to get Rooster, she's never been married. Okay, she's, and she knows that people kind of think she's the weird spinster lady.
She's
right?
a cranky old maid.
A cranky old maid is how they put it. Yeah. And, and it's like she knows I've paid this price of never, having a relationship or never, having children or whatever it is, because of my commitment to righteousness. I think, I've yet to find a transmitting one who can be broken, perhaps civilized a bit, but they're going to be who they are. Yeah.
That scene also, when she's being beaten, she fights back physically, and she's too small.
Yeah.
She's not strong enough. So then she uses her words, and she calls out to Cogburn to shame him, saying, "Will you stand by and allow this to happen?" And it works.
And he has to think about it for a minute.
Yeah. But again, she's calling on his sense of righteousness. There's an injustice happening right here and now in front of you. Will you allow this? What are you made of as a human?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess in movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Animal House, or Shawshank Redemption, there's kind of a catharsis for the audience in seeing this transmitting one be broken. Of like, here is this hard ass who simply will not break, and boom, there they go. Let's see them go down. Because, fuck you, oppressor.
Yeah.
Or in a movie like this, or in a movie like Gandhi, which is another one we'd considered for this episode, we live vicariously through them because they are right. And we see them triumph over incredible odds. And it's like, hey, good on you. Or Joan of Arc. We feel good that we have such a person on our side, that there's such a force of righteousness out there fighting the good fight.
That's a really interesting point, TJ, and that glee we experience when seeing the evil transmitting one get their comeuppance, and the pride we feel or the admiration we feel, and sometimes a little bit of both, right? I wonder if we could put the bridge, Bridge over the River Kwai. Was that Alec Guinness?
Yeah.
And you can feel when he. He's so focused on building the bridge, even though it's helping the Japanese in World War II. But he's so focused on the rightness of the task itself, or doing the task the right way. And then he has that moment of realization at the end, of, oh my God, what have I done? Which is just heartbreaking. Right? When you see that, and you don't say, your reaction to that character at the time is not, well, what were you thinking, or that sort of thing. You feel for this character. Some excellent points.
And then in the case of another character we've talked about, another transmitting one, Captain America. We are almost universally on board as he fights the Red Skull, or as he fights Thanos, or what have you. There's some ambivalence in Civil War when it's like what he's fighting is accountability.
Right.
Then we get into some of the moral gray area, which transmitting ones famously aren't too comfortable with.
Right.
But by and large, he's a champion that we are meant to side with and stand behind and feel good to follow his lead.
So, other things about this character that were one-ish transmitting one-ish.
Well, so I wanted to ask you guys, I mean, we sort of did it in reverse and talked about this a little bit already, but, she's transmitting, but not in the peacocky, seductive, hey, everyone, come and see how good I look sort of a way.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think, are there any visual cues like that? And I did notice that her appearance is always immaculate. Her hair is always braided. The braids are in the front. Her hat is square and set in the right place. Her poncho is like clean. So I don't know if there's something, I don't want to stretch the metaphor too far. So it's not peacocky in a way, but it's like the way a one would do it, basically. Like, I'm going to look good, and this is the right way to look.
That's exactly what it is, and it is circumstance appropriate, right? So very often one of the things you see in transmitting ones, another transmitting one character that we've talked about in the past is the Brad Pitt character in Tree of Life, okay? And if you remember his character, he dressed very conservatively, but very starched, right? I mean, you could just see that, that this is one of the things I always think of with transmitting ones, is that they often seem very starched. And with her, it's that same sort of thing, right? It's like, even though, when you compare her appearance to everybody around her, now, LaBeef is a little bit of a different story. We can come back to him, and explain why he looks, say, different than Rooster Cogburn or Tom Chaney or Ned Pepper or any of these other sort of characters. There is this kind of starched and immaculate appearance. Even when she puts the hat on, she puts the newspaper inside of it because it doesn't fit right. Now, part of that was, practicality, but she was put together for her.
Especially considering that it's the Old West. And for large segments of the movie, she's camping.
Yes. Like on a coon hunt.
This ain't no coon hunt.
All right. Let's see. What else you guys have on the Matty character?
Well, one thing that cracked me up is that she's able to parse the difference between malum prohibitum and I can't even remember, malum in se. Like legal terms in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 14.
Yes.
She knows the difference. She understands it. She can parse it fluently in the moment. How many adults could say the same?
Right. Yeah, she was and this is something we see in ones. You know, I see ones often, particularly navigating ones. It could be some of the others as well, misidentified with threes because they do have this desire to achieve, right? Because achievement is more perfect than not. Okay, so they're often very good at what they do and take their work very seriously and work hard to be very good at it in a way we might typically associate with the three. But again, it's not because I want to be outstanding and have everybody tell me how awesome I am. It's because I have a responsibility to do it well, okay? Which is where that comes from. And that's just another example of her. I mean, because, you know, on the one hand, you could say, oh, come on, how would a 14-year-old girl in the Old West know what that is? But I can see her reading books, you know. I can see her being the kind of kid who's any book I can get my hand on, it's my responsibility to read it and to understand these things.
Yeah, take Hermione Granger from Harry Potter and stick her in the Old West, and that's pretty much what you get.
Yeah, I don't know what any of those words mean, but that's a
Hermione, one of the great fictional one characters.
Okay.
Another great female one.
All right. Okay, good. All right, what else you got on the transmitting one of Matty?
She has to be the adult among adults. So there's a number of times where she's trying to bring a resolution between Cogburn and LaBeef. Like there's a scene where they get into an argument about, you know, his marksmanship because he's only got one eye.
Yeah.
And then he starts throwing things in the air. Like they're also arguing about who has a better weapon. And then they kind of get into a shooting contest in the middle of their pursuit. And she says, gentlemen, shooting cornbread here on the plain is not getting us closer to the Ned Pepper gang. And then later when they're fighting about something else, she says, gentlemen, we cannot fall out in this fashion with Chaney so close at hand.
Yeah.
Again, like somebody has to be the adult in this situation. Of course, it's going to be the transmitting one, even though she's 14.
Right. And there were other things too that, you know, again, just jump out, like correcting spelling all of the time, right? Even in the, you know, he leaves her this note and says that, you know, pursuit would be futile. And she says, by the way, it's not Fudel. It's, you know, and at the end, she talks about his letter and says, brief though his note was, it was rife with misspellings.
And this is someone for whom she feels affection.
Yes.
Like deep affection and gratitude.
Yes.
But still.
Yes.
There's a quote from Instinctual Leadership that I wanted to read. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, it's the working with transmitting ones section here.
Does it say good luck and then
right.
You know, a period? Yeah.
We're not that bad. Well, I could read the whole 2 pages and it would be perfect. But essentially, this line is relevant to what you just said. It helps to remember that the transmitting one is tougher on themselves than they are on others, and their goal is to help people become better versions of themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not just correcting spelling to be a dick about it, although,
right.
You know, at an unhealthy level, there could be some of that. It's also, no, I'm correcting you so that you don't make that mistake next time. Be better.
Yeah.
Eventually, then you won't have any spelling mistakes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here to help you get better, and I know this is going to hurt you, but trust me, it hurts me more than it hurts you, you know, sort of thing. Absolutely.
It's like correcting somebody's posture. You will be healthier and live longer if you don't have back pain.
Right.
So just sit right now, and that won't happen. That's the easiest thing. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't anyone do that? Yeah. And TJ Ingrassia, what you bring up isn't something we really see in this movie, but it's something that's in other movies and in a lot of the literature about ones. And, you know, I'm related to a couple of ones. It's hard to be a one. You know, all the criticism that ones lay on other people, that's happening on an inward direction too. Those standards are relentless, and unlike the rest of us, you don't get to walk away from the oneness when you're the one.
Yeah. The transmitting one can be, let's see, they can be the most one-ish in a sense, right, of the things that we associate with being one-ish. I find that their environment tends to be very particular. They tend to be very particular about their environment, which can make people think that they're self-pres ones. But that's not the case. It's just, again, this, I need to fix the world around me. But I'll just echo what you said there, TJ. It is this constant weight on them that they feel, right? And there's just so many great so many great examples of ones in movies, and I'm sure books and wherever, of ones punishing themselves, right? Of, this kind of self-flagellation, either literal or figuratively, of just beating up on themselves for not being pure enough. There's have you guys seen Boardwalk Empire?
No, actually.
There's the character, oh shoot, I can't remember this actor's
Michael
name.
Shannon.
Yes, thank you, Michael Shannon, where he plays this real transmitting one character who loses all of his moral bearings. And there are these scenes where he's alone by himself in his hotel room, whipping himself right across the back just to, tame his, demons that he's feeling. So it can be tough. All right, so I do want to talk about some of the other characters and, where we see them. But any final thoughts on Matty?
She's a girl after my own heart. She's an old soul.
If you had met her when you were 14, what would you think of her?
I think I'd have been into it. Sort of like Kelly McGillis as an Amish woman. There's not many Amish women that look like her. There's probably not a whole lot of 14-year-old girls in the Old West who look like Hailee Steinfeld, who's gone on to. Actually, this was her first role, which was really interesting, and she's gone on to some great stuff.
Yeah, recently Sinners, right? She was in Sinners.
Oh man, she was so good in Sinners. But yeah, I'd have been into it.
Yeah.
And as we talked about, she's not presenting herself to be attractive. She's dressing appropriately. She's clean. She's symmetrical, but she's not coquettish.
Right.
She's 14, and that was an interesting thing for me to see, is because my memory of the movie is that she was 10.
Oh.
There's a big difference between 10 and 14. But the completely non-sexual presentation of her kind of, I think, contributed to that. Is like, well, it's before the hormones kick in. No, this is right when the hormones are fully engaged. But she's still buttoned up, upright, non-sexual, appropriate at all times.
Yeah. I really think that there's just not a line of dialogue or a scene in the movie involving Matty that just doesn't scream transmitting one. Right? I mean, it's almost like the Coen brothers said, let's make this character as transmitting one as we can and fill her mouth with all of these lines. Have you guys, either of you, read the book True Grit by Charles Porter? I started to read it after the last time I watched the movie, but I felt like I was reading a screenplay. I felt like I was reading the screenplay. So I'd be curious to go back and see how much of the dialogue came from Portis versus how much of it came from the Coen brothers. But I really do remember thinking, I just read this book, by watching the movie, kind of like they did with No Country for Old Men, right? I mean, if you read No Country for Old Men, it is just, again, it's like reading a screenplay. And I think we talked about how Cormac McCarthy saw it as a screenplay in his mind when he wrote the book. But anyway. Well,
it's interesting that you point out in the 69 version, which I've only seen portions of, that character is played more as a 6.
Yeah, more. But, I'd have to go back and watch it again to be sure. But it was kind of a more frantic sort of character, right? There was still this sort of moralistic character. I don't know if that's because the actress Kim Darby was more of a 6 than a 1, and that came through. But it did have a slightly different feel to it to me. Yeah.
And given that the novel's not iconic, like this isn't an adaptation of Shakespeare or something like that,
right?
There is the flexibility to do that, and that's a really interesting exercise for somebody who wants to parse the difference between a 1 and a 6, or how a character might be written, or the difference between what an actor brings to it versus what's in the script.
Yeah. I don't want to make too strong a case for the Kim Darby character being a 6, but that's my memory from many, many years ago. So let's move on and talk about some of the other characters. And because every character in this movie is a gem, right? I mean, there's no wasted lines. There are no. The Coen brothers did not miss an opportunity to make a point or entertain or marvel people with the characters. The one gang member at the end who just does animal sounds the whole time, right? It's like, I was watching my wife and she's like, what the heck is that all about? Right? And I said, I don't know, but I love it, man. It's just awesome, you know. And they walk
Every gang's got to have one of those.
Yeah, Farrell, do the calf again, you know. I was like, you know.
He's good.
Yeah, he is good. So everything about it is wonderful. But Jeff Bridges, man, oh man, wow. And if John Wayne won an Academy Award for that portrayal, how did Jeff Bridges not win an Academy Award for this? I don't think he did, right?
No, but he had won a year or two before for Crazy Heart. Playing a not dissimilar character.
Okay, so I haven't seen that movie.
Okay.
This made me think of. This was kind of a turning point in Jeff Bridges' career, right? Because he went from being, you know, the very handsome leading man sort of character to being kind of the quirkier, Big Lebowski kind of character to now the grizzled old guy character, like he was also in Hell or High Water, which is, I think, another incredible.
Man, such a great movie. I love that movie.
It's, you know, so good, and he is so good in it, and he's incredible in this. Speculations on his personality style.
Yeah, boy, this is a tough one.
Well, I think we might have some disagreement here, so I'm curious on what you guys have to say. So go ahead.
I mean, he's an 8, right? Is there any disagreement there?
Oh, well, TJ Dawe?
Seems pretty 8-ish to me.
See, I am going to go with transmitting 9 in this. Okay? A grizzled, aggressive, Old West character, but... So first of all, clearly transmitting, right? I mean, there are the scenes they're just walking along and he's telling the stories of his life and just, you know, just all that sort of thing. And it could be easy, very easy, to see him as an 8. And when we have that anchor of John Wayne playing the character originally, the John Wayne version was absolutely an 8. But he was so reluctant throughout all of this, and he really just wanted to kind of lay in bed and drink whiskey, and
he's very chill. It's kind of like you take the dude and put him in the Old West.
You know, I think when you see it, you start to say, "Ooh, wait a minute," right? And it goes to show that 9s aren't all lovey-dovey and huggy and peace and loving and all these sort of things. That they can be tough and they can be grizzled and they can be abrasive. But you can see in Rooster just this, you know, I'm done with all this. I'm just done with it. You know, I forget the line he says when he says that he's withdrawing from the thing, and he's got that great phrase he uses that I can never remember, but it's just, you know, the Jake is occupied, I'm going to be in here for some time. You know, he's not telling her go away or I'm going to come out there and hit you with a switch, right? He's hiding in the outhouse from this girl, right? and just, you know, and when she out argues him, he just falls back on the Jake is occupied, you know, kind of thing. So I'm going with transmitting 9 in this character. So
would you say that what seemed 8-ish to me could be chalked up to transmitting?
Yes.
So give
an example. Do you have an example?
Yeah, the pissing contest he gets into with LaBeef about who's a better marksman.
Yeah.
Stereotypically, that's not something a 9 would do. It's just like, you win, even though internally I'm thinking like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Stereotypically, that's how a 9 would react.
Yes.
In this case, he's the aggressor.
Yes, and he's drunk. Okay, so you know some of the inhibition is down. Okay, and what we see in 9s, you know, we talk about. I think it's an awareness to action, and maybe some of the other stuff we've written. There's this contradiction in the nine, because of their tendency to repress this desire to stand out. Every so often, they're like, "Screw you, man! I got to show you how awesome I am." Okay, and so this real competitive thing, this real need for the spotlight, this real need for recognition can flash up in that sort of situation. And then when you add
it's like Bruce Banner with the Hulk, basically. He's Bruce Banner most of the time, but then the Hulk comes out sometimes.
This is exactly it, right? And then again, when you add the transmitting part to that, it's just this constant need to talk. And I do want to spar. I do want to be recognized for my achievements and accomplishments. Mixed with this, again, just deep ambivalence about things. So,
and I'd really prefer to be left alone.
Yes, yeah, with
my bottle of whiskey and my cot in the back of the store.
Yeah. And he even says, because it's not about the money for me. I'm an old man living in the back of a Chinese grocery, kind of thing. For me, transmitting 9.
All right, you convinced me. I'm sold.
So again, just to throw this in, another moment that seemed pretty 8-ish to me is what we talked about before when she's riding a horse across the river and he's checking her out. And as you said, that's when his opinion changes of like, there's something you could very easily seem, as it seemed to me, like that's an 8 doing a very typically 8-ish thing, which is evaluating someone, being impressed by somebody being assertive, by being decisive, by showing courage and strength. But I guess you could say that about a transmitter as well, of like game recognizes game.
There you go. And frankly, who wouldn't look at that and say, damn, I'm pretty impressed, right? I mean, so it was just an impressive activity, okay? But yeah, you're right. I mean, an 8 would be very quick to do that. And again, we could have this situation. I'd have to go back and fully read the novel because the character could be written as an 8, and the character in the novel may be, more distinctly 8-ish, and certainly the John Wayne version of it was distinctly 8-ish. But
is Jeff Bridges a 9 in real life, you think?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
For sure.
So that could also just be some, you take the same character, John Wayne and Jeff Bridges both put their spin on it, and you're going to get pretty much what we got.
That's exactly right, and we talk about this a lot. It's hard for the actor's Enneagram type not to show itself. I don't know if I can think of a single Jeff Bridges role where he's not a 9, and and again, John Wayne, same thing, right? I mean, John Wayne is in no way he's ever anything but an 8. Now, some actors are different, right? I mean, we talked about Harrison Ford as both a 1 and a 5 in our subtype thing, and we could do him as a 7 for Raiders of the Lost Ark. So,
which we did in our Spielberg episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there you go. So, but most actors really bring who they are to the role, I think.
Well, on Jeff Bridges, I will be curious to get your take on him in Crazy Heart, because similarly, I'd seen him as an 8, but could be a 9, definitely a transmitter. Yeah. And Tron, have you seen that or seen that recently enough to evaluate it?
Oh, geez, I saw Tron in a drive-in movie theater, and I was with a girl, and we were only partially paying attention to the movie. So I
just the conversation was so engaging in the car.
Yeah, well, we were young at the time, so we were smooching through most of it. Yes.
Well, you missed a cinematic masterpiece, I got to say. Tron was a big movie in my childhood. Okay. And it's a favorite that I've returned to a number of times over the years. I think he plays a pretty 7-ish character in that.
Could be. Yeah, I can't speak to Tron, but I could see him getting away with being a 7. So, all right. Okay, so Hell or High Water, I'd say, is another one where he's a transmitting 9. So, but a character that looks on the surface kind of 8-ish. So, the other guy, Matt Damon, LaBeef. Yeah, thoughts on his Enneagram subtype?
Well, let me just get a little righteous and one-ish myself about the fact that, as somebody who grew up speaking French, the way that name is spelled should be LaBeouf. And the fact that he himself introduces himself as LaBeef, that is the pronunciation that is done, it just rubs me the wrong way. if there's going to be a la, we know it's French. Come on. It's somebody with a French name whose name is always mispronounced. It's like, get it right, goddammit.
All right. So now that you've got that off your chest, any thoughts on his subtype?
I didn't have 100% sense of his type. So my best guess is 3, but I wrote that with a question mark.
Yeah.
Transmitting 3 is what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think it was a pretty good example of a transmitting 3. He was very self-satisfied. He was very self-referencing. There was even the scene where I forget exactly what it was. I think after he rescues her, and he says, "Ever stalwart," just this. It's just this constant. I don't know. This constant self-aggrandizement.
And I thought that it was an interesting dichotomy between his transmitting and Matty's transmitting. He's got definitely more of the peacocking kind of thing. He's got these buckskin clothes with the ruffles on them. He's carrying the Sharps carbine. He's got the hat. He just, if you see, he's much more sort of the classic stereotype of a transmitter. You see him coming down the street. Oh man, who is that guy? What's he? You see him coming from a mile away.
Yes.
The scene when Matty wakes up and he's in the bedroom with her and they're sort of arguing, he asks her, she asked him if he's from the law, and he puffs his chest, leans back. Oh, I'm from the Texas Rangers, and sort of, dramatically reveals the badge. He's very proud of that.
And
for sure.
They moved to undercut him a number of times. Yes. So in one altercation, he bites his tongue so powerfully that Rooster Cogburn offers to tear it out on his behalf, which of course he refuses. But then from that point on, his speech is kind of mangled because he's got a wound on his tongue. It's like, let's set up like it's... I can see that being played to comic effect if it was Tom Cruise, for example. Okay, let's do this thing that makes him ridiculous every time he opens his mouth. Right.
Yeah, for sure. That tongue part gets me every time. I'm not. I don't cringe that easily, but that one's like, ooh. All right.
When he and Matty are arguing about where to take Chaney to get the justice, she says to him, it matters a great deal to me that he's hanged in Fort Smith. Doesn't it matter to you? And he says, it matters. It makes a great deal of money to me that he goes back to Texas.
Right.
So there is sort of this, not exactly cutting corners, but he's going to do just whatever makes the most sense for him. Not for some moral sense, but he's got this objective. He's going to do it, and he's going to make some money while he's doing it.
Yeah. I don't know that any other characters were clear enough to really assess their Enneagram type. It was interesting with Ned Chaney, wonderfully played by Josh Brolin in a pretty small role, but
just Tom Chaney.
Tom Chaney, thank you.
I kept thinking Lon Chaney as I was.
Yeah, what did I call him? What did I call
Ned?
him?
Well, Ned. You're thinking Ned Pepper.
Ned Pepper, I conflated
played
him,
by Barry Pepper.
Barry,
I wonder if that's a coincidence or if there was some, let's get one Pepper to play the other Pepper. But man, what an incredible small role he had in that film.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, so what if you got a sense of what Ned Pepper's type is? I was curious about that.
Now that one seemed 8-ish to me. Again, a small role, but that one would have seemed transmitting 8 to me. Had I being forced to choose something. I don't know. How about you guys? Any different opinion on that?
I don't even have them in my notes, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah. That seemed right. The only question mark I had, he's definitely in charge of that gang.
Yeah.
He's, I think, striving to feel powerful. You can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But he also had this sense of, there was almost a moral sense in him. Like when he draws the gun on Matty, I didn't really buy that he's actually going to shoot her. It felt like more he's just trying to scare her into getting information. He brings her back to the camp, and he's almost impressed by her and sort of intrigued. But I could see that being almost an 8-ish, like the game, respect game sort of thing. Like she's going to stand up for herself, so he's going to give her some leeway.
Yeah, and I want to be careful about trying to rationalize these things, because I just went the other way in explaining the Rooster Cogburn reaction to her as, not necessarily pointing to 8, but I think in conjunction with the other 8-ish things, it's what an 8 would do. I'm going to set up some rules. It's like, yeah, this kid, it's a 14-year-old girl, right? I mean, I'm not completely evil. I'm a bad guy, but I'm not completely evil. I'm not going to hurt this kid. And unlike Jeff Bridges, Rooster Cogburn is going to kick the kids off the porch.
Literally kick them. I laughed so hard in that scene.
But not for no reason.
No, they deserved. They
were tormenting an animal.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. So, but he also instructed Tom Chaney not to hurt her and to do the right thing by her and live up to the rules. So, but again, I think the affect just seemed pretty 8-ish to me in general. I don't have, there I go, calling him Tom Chaney. I'm talking about Ned Pepper there. Sorry. So with Tom Chaney as the Josh Brolin character, I don't really have a feel for him, but it was an incredible performance. I thought, again, just for a few minutes of screen time, he was awesome. Thoughts on that character?
I think Josh Brolin brings a lot of 8-ishness to whatever character he does. Most of the roles I can think of him in, he's very much an 8. And then in this, I was kind of going with that. And then he started whining.
He whines a lot.
Yeah. Not something you're likely to hear out of the mouth of an 8.
Right.
So maybe 6. Maybe a transmitting 6.
Yeah.
He's like, everything is stacked against me. That's what he's whining about, which is something 6s can get fixated on.
Right.
It's not fair. Everybody's picking on me.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm going to lash out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to say, but for those reasons, I wouldn't have thought of him as an 8.
Yeah. But regardless of the type, I think Matty's assessment of him as a half-wit is more or less correct. He's not the sharpest crayon in the box to make some metaphors there.
And it's great because when they first encounter each other at the stream, and he's just looking at her like, again, it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me, right? Why is this girl here in the middle of nowhere at this river? And his initial reaction is not one of hostility, right? It's just, oh, hey, how you doing? He doesn't put together that, wait a minute, I just killed her father a few days ago, and here she is. This could be a bad thing, and he doesn't really get it until she points the gun at him. So.
And even then, he's still sort of, he steps back a bit, but he's even still like instructing her on how to cock the gun and sort of almost like patting her on the head, like, oh, this is cute, what you're trying to do.
Right. Yeah.
Which seems more 8-ish.
It does seem somewhat 8-ish. I think we would have needed to flesh out this character a bit more and have some more time with it to realize, to get a good feel of the type. Any other characters? Nobody else really stood out to me as having a defined personality type. Okay.
Yeah, not really.
There. Okay. So what would it have been like if Matty was a preserving one?
I think she would have been a lot less likely to have left home and done something this risky.
Yeah.
So she probably would have taken on even more responsibility on the home front, given that now we are without a father and provider. So instead of going out to exact vengeance, or not so much vengeance, but to bring the perpetrator to justice, she would have worked harder. Let's be the responsible daughter. Let's study harder. Let's work harder on the farm. We don't really find out too much about where she lives or what her life is like. But she has a mother, she has siblings, so let's take care of them.
And then in her spare time, she'd write some very strongly worded letters to the law to get them to go take care of it.
Right. Yeah. She would have attorney Daggett actually doing the work rather than her, probably.
And I picked up, it's only in voiceover. It's very brief. And I flagged, it's like, oh, I recognize that voice of the attorney, but now I can't remember who the voice was. Who was it?
Oh.
Yeah, what's his name from Whiplash and
J.K. Simmons.
Yes,
J.K.
yes, yes.
Simmons. Oh, I didn't catch that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, great 8 actor who often plays 8s, who's been in a number of Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah.
Brilliant character actor.
Yeah. The John Wayne version, we actually get to meet lawyer J. Noble Daggett, and he's this squirrely little, bespeckled guy who's very timid with a high-pitched voice and stuff. So it's kind of funny. She's built him up to be this more J.K. Simmons-ish character when, in fact, he's this. He reminded me of Charles Martin Smith from The Untouchables and some American Graffiti and that sort of thing. It wasn't him, but it was that kind of physical presence. So, how about navigating one?
Well, to build on what you said before, I think we would need to know more about what her role is in her home life. So is she the obedient daughter? Is she the one who takes care of her siblings? Is she a school teacher in training? Is she a farmhand? She would probably orient herself to how can I be that to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And, I was going to suggest maybe a little bit more... what am I trying to say here? Managing the relationship between herself, Rooster, and LaBeef. Yeah. Maybe not so much, willing to discard, trying to keep the team together for the purpose of achieving the objective.
Yeah. Navigating ones have some sand to them, and they can be assertive. So it's not like they would be afraid to go in this sort of situation. But I agree with you. They would have been more focused on how do I reconcile these different points of view kind of thing. Also, they don't have quite the same sense of certainty. There is some certainty, right? We think of Buttercup from Princess Bride, and there is this sort of moral certainty to her, but there's also this... She was willing to, commit suicide rather than to stand up for righteousness in that case. So the navigating one, there's a little bit more push and pull about how much should I try to change the other versus how much should I just kind of give up and let them do them and that sort of thing. So not quite as intense about it. We've made references to a few other transmitting ones throughout the episode here, but let's talk about some other characters in other movies that we think are transmitting ones. Suggestions?
Well, I've got a list here, so just to go through it and recap some of the ones we have mentioned. We mentioned Gandhi, Ben Kingsley and Gandhi. We got Steve Rogers, Captain America in the MCU. And the other ones on my list, I've got Katharine Hepburn in The African Queen. And I think Katharine Hepburn in pretty much any role she played. Professor Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady. Father Marin in The Exorcist, the Max von Sydow character. We did an episode on Chocolat, so the Alfred Molina character in that, the mayor. Nicholas Angel, Simon Pegg's character in Hot Fuzz. That's one of my favorite transmitting ones in a comedy where it's just a wonderful portrayal. Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady, played by Meryl Streep. Judi Dench in the James Bond franchise. Georg von Trapp, Christopher Plummer in The Sound of Music. Princess Leia in Star Wars, Atticus Finch, Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird, Gregory Peck in practically anything. Rorschach, Jackie Earle Haley in Watchmen. A movie that I suggested, which I rewatched and love, Professor Vivian Baring, played by Emma Thompson in Wit. That was an HBO movie in 2001. Emma Thompson co-wrote the script with the director, Mike Nichols, and it's not something that's widely watched anymore, and it is exquisite. And a runner-up that we almost did this episode on, Daniel Day-Lewis's character in Last of the Mohicans. The character is Nathaniel Poe in the movie. In the novel, he is Nat Bumpo.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, another actor who could be multiple types in movies. Definitely a transmitting one in Last of the Mohicans. We talked about him, I think, at some point in Phantom Thread as a 5 character, maybe a preserving 5. And I think we could say that Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood was probably an 8.
A deranged psychopath who's probably an 8.
All right, good.
And he plays a great 9 as Abraham Lincoln in Lincoln.
Yes.
And I would put my guess on him being a 4 in My Left Foot as Christy Brown, one of his 3 Oscar wins.
Yeah, never saw that one.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. TJ Ingrassia, any transmitting ones you would add to the list?
I think that pretty much covered all the good ones.
Okay.
The big ones, anyway.
Yeah. Only one I would add is Ben Kingsley in Sexy Beast, the movie with Ray Winstone. Not a very well-known movie. And again, I think that it's a character where people could look at that and see an 8. But again, when you look at that character, there's just this severity in the way he's dressed. And when he's trying to get Ray Winstone to do the role, he's just berating him in a very one-ish sort of way. So, and another one where you are just really happy to see the transmitting one bad guy get their comeuppance. So, okay, well,
one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing I want to mention is the Coen brothers movies don't have any consistency with the Enneagram type of the protagonist. So you will see a good spread of Enneagram types if you go through their body of work. And I just love them to pieces. I think anything they make is worth watching.
Yeah, I really agree. And listener, viewer, if you have not seen True Grit, don't be put off by the idea that it's a Western. It is a jewel of a movie, and you will enjoy it. So, guys, thank you. Now we have finished the preserving one and the transmitting one. That means we're going to be doing the navigating one next time. And again, we're not going to tell you what we're going to talk about because we might change our mind, but I think that we probably won't. So anyway, guys, a lot of fun. We'll see you next time.